Okay, y'all, Unit 9.1 test review. So on the first 8, we are solving radical equations. So remember, you have to get the radical alone. Let's see if I have a highlighter. So on the first one, we're trying to get this alone. So I need to subtract x from both sides. So now I have my radical by itself. And I need to square both sides to get rid of this radical because this is a square root. So when I square this side, I have to also square this side. So my square root cancels my squared and I have x plus 1 equals, on this side I have to double distribute. So I have 5 minus x, 5 minus x, so 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times negative x is negative 5x. Negative x times 5 is negative 5x. Negative x times negative x, well, two negatives is a positive, x times x is x squared. These are like terms, and this gives me negative 10x. So I'm going to write it now in order, because right now it's backwards. And I have x squared minus 10x plus 25. Okay, so knowing that, because I have a squared, I have to get it equal to 0, so I can either factor or do quadratic formula. So minus x, minus 1, minus 1. So now the left side equals 0, equals x squared minus 11x plus 24. So I'm going to go ahead and factor this. And I have b is negative 11, a is x, and then a times c is 24. So it multiplies to give me 24 and adds to give me 11. It's going to be negative 8 and negative 3, because two negatives multiply to give you a positive. Also, I'm at home, so I don't have my calculator. But, so here I have x minus 8 and x minus 3 is my factors. And then remember, we set our factors equal to 0, and we solve. So plus 8, x equals 8, plus 3, x equals 3. So I have 8 and 3, but we have to check our work. Okay. So, hey, Sadie. I'm making the video. It's in your closet hanging up. So we have to plug it into the original. So the original is 8 plus the square root of x, so 8 plus 1. And whenever it equals, it should equal 5, and it does not. So 8 is not an answer. Now we have to try the 3. 3 plus the square root of 3 plus 1. And this should equal 5, and it did, so 3 is an answer. So we are going to write this as 3, and then 8 is our extraneous solution. Now, number 2 is super simple. What's squared is, what's the radical is already alone. So I'm just going to go ahead and square both sides. Well, square root cancels the squared, and I get x equals 81. And if I plug that in, square root of 81 is 9. So that worked. So my answer is 81. Okay, on number 3, I have to get this cube root alone. So I'm going to do minus 4, and I get the cube root of x equals negative 4. Remember, cube roots are allowed to be negatives. So now that my cube root is alone, I have to cube both sides. Now, when you have negatives, you have to use parentheses. And I get x equals, so we're going to do negative 4 to the third power, and I get negative 64. So again, we plug it in. To do cube root, you do math, cube root, negative 64, then outside plus 4 should equal 0. Don't listen to my calculator. If you do it on yours, it will work. So this is negative 64. Okay, If you look at number 4, this is what we need to get alone. So we're going to do minus 5, and I have the square root of x plus 7 equals x minus 5. So now we have to square both sides. So squared, squared, square root cancels the square, and we're left with x plus 7 equals, here we have to distribute. So x times x is x squared, x times negative 5 is negative 5x, negative 5 times x is negative 5x, negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. So I'm left with x squared minus 10x plus 25. Okay, and because I have a squared, I have to get it set equal to 0. So minus x minus 7 minus 7. I get 0 equals x squared minus 11x plus, what is that, 18, 25 minus 7. Yeah. So I have to factor. This is positive, sorry, positive 18. So knowing that, it's going to be negative 9 and negative 2. Okay, so now we plug it in. So square root of, let's try 9 first. So 9 plus 7 plus 5 is 9, which x was 9. That's what we plugged in, so 9 works. So now we try 2. Square root of 2 plus 7. Outside is plus 5, and that should equal 2, but it did not. So this one does not work. So we have 9. And then 2 is our extraneous solution in parentheses. Okay, let's look at number 5. So again, we have to get our cube root alone. So I'm going to do minus 3, and I get the cube root of 12x plus 4 equals negative 2. So I have to cube both sides. Left, the cube root cancels the cube, and I get 12x plus 4 equals negative 2 to the third power is negative 8. So minus 4, minus 4. I don't have a squared this time, so we're just solving for x. So I get x equals negative 1, and if I plug that in, math, 4, 12 times negative 1 plus 4 plus 3, and it equals 1. So we're good. Okay, now let's look at number 6. On number 6, I have to get at least one of the radicals by themselves. So I'm going to focus on getting this one by itself because it's positive. This one has a negative, so I don't want to get that one alone. So I'm going to add the square root of 5x minus 12 to both sides. This one cancels, and I get the square root of 3x plus 12 equals the square root of 5x minus 12. Well, now that I have them both by themselves, how to get rid of a square root? You square it. Well, if I square this side and this side, it just cancels both of the radicals. So we're left with 3x plus 12 equals 5x minus 12. So we like this problem. So knowing that, we're going to move, I like to move my smallest variable first, so minus 3x, 12 equals 2x minus 12. So now I'm trying to get x by itself, so I'm going to add 12, and I get 24 equals 2x. Divide by 2, I get x equals 12. So we're going to check it. So square root of 3 times 12 plus 12 minus, came outside the house, another square root of 5 times 12 minus 12, and I get 0, so it works. So there is the solution. Okay, let's look at number 7. On number 7, I have to get this radical alone. So I'm going to do minus 4 minus 4. I get 3 square root of x equals 15. Divide by 3, divide by 3. This is the step a lot of people forget. That 3 is on the outside of the house, so it has to go. And I get the square root of x equals 5. How do I get rid of a square root? I square both sides. And I get x equals 25. So again, we can check our work. So we have 4 plus 3 square root of 25, and this should equal 19, and it does. Okay, number 8 is a lot like number 6, but this time the cube roots are all both alone. So we're just going to cube both sides, and that just canceled both of the cube roots. So I'm left with 5x plus 3 equals 4x minus 2. I'm going to move my smallest variable, minus 4x minus 4x. And I get x plus 3 equals negative 2, minus 3 minus 3, and I get x equals negative 5. So we check our work. Math 4, 5 times negative 4, plus 3. I get this ugly thing. So math 4, I get 4 times negative 5 minus 2, and I get the same ugly thing, so negative 5 is my answer. Okay, now to the next page. Okay, we're going to look at the triangles. So remember, your Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, and c always has to be your longest side. So knowing that this is my c, so a, b, c. So knowing that, I'm going to go ahead and label, or plug it in. So a is 10 squared plus b is 5 squared equals y squared. Well, I'm just going to use my calculator, y'all. So 10 squared plus 5 squared is 125. And I know 125 is not a perfect square because square root of 125 is a decimal. And it didn't give me decimals, so I have to put it in simplified radical form. So 125 is 5 and 25, I believe. Yep. And then 25 is 5 and 5. So I have a pair of 5 and a 5 left over. So this gives me, because I had to square root both sides, sorry y'all. And I get 5 square root of 5 equals y. So here is A, B, C. So I have 6 squared plus y squared equals the square root of 85 squared. Well, I know the square root of the square root cancel each other, so I get 6 squared plus y squared equals 85, minus 6 squared on both sides. I get y squared equals 85 minus 6 squared is 49. Well, I know that's a perfect square, so when I square root both sides, square root, this cancels and I get y equals 7. So there's my answer. Now remember, when you take the square root of a number, it's positive and negative, but the negative here doesn't make sense. You can't have a negative side length. So let's look at number 11. So here is my C. So this can be my A, this can be my B. So I have y squared plus 11 squared equals 61 squared. I don't even square them, so minus 11 squared minus 11 squared. I get y squared equals 61 squared minus 11 squared. And I get 3600, which I'm not sure if that's a perfect square root. So when I square root it, let's type it in our calculator and see what it says. And it is, it's 60. So okay, let's look at number 12. So on this one, I know this is my A, my B, and my C, because remember, your C is what's across from your perfect angle if it gets confusing. So we have 8 squared plus 8 squared equals y squared. So we get 128, which I know is not a perfect square, so when I square root both sides, I have to break it down. So 2, sorry if y'all hear my dogs in the background, and 64. I know 64 is a perfect square of 8 and 8, so remember when it matches I can stop. And I get y equals 8 square root of 2. Okay, number 13 has a picture for us. I printed mine in color. So it says a river runs straight through the center of a park. A man stands at one bank of the river and his daughter stands across the river and 22 feet upstream. So dad, 22 upstream, there's the daughter. The man's son, there's the brother, swims from the man to his daughter. If the river is 11 feet wide, how far does the son swim? So we need to know this distance. This is our missing, and it's also our C. So knowing that, we have 22 squared plus 11 squared equals C squared. And I could do a decimal because it's a real world problem. So 22 squared plus 11 squared is 605. So this gives me 605 equals C squared. And then it says round to the nearest foot. So when it tells you to round, we know we're doing a decimal. So I have to go ahead and do square root, and the square root of 605 is this, and it wants me to round to the nearest whole number. So after the decimals of 5 means I round up, and it's 25 feet. Okay, lastly, we're getting started on our rational problems. So we're going to start with number 14. If we were to not cross multiply, I want you to realize our least common denominator would just be your two denominators together, so x plus 2 and x plus 6. However, I'm going to go and just cross multiply. However, what would make these equal 0? Well, what cancels a positive 2 is a negative 2. X cannot equal, and this would be a negative 6, so negative 6 or negative 2. So now let's cross multiply, and I get 7 times x plus 2 equals 5 times x plus 6. So that gives me 7x plus 14 equals 5x plus 30. I like to move my smallest variable first, so minus 5x minus 5x. That gives me 2x plus 14 equals 30. Minus 14 minus 14 gives me 2x equals, what is that, 30 minus 14? 16. What? I think 26. Divide by 2, I get x equals 8. Well, that's not negative 6 or 2, so x equals 8. And there's my answers. Now you can still plug these in. So you would do 5 over 8 plus 2, and that equals this. And then you would do 7 over 8 plus 6, and that also equals a half, so that is correct. Okay, let's look at this one. So here, my least common denominator would be, this one has a 3, I could give this one a 3, so they both have a 3. This has 2 x's, and this needs another x, so it would be x squared. Your domain, because there's no plus or minus, is just x cannot equal 0. And I remember, if you don't know, you can set them equal to 0 and solve. We'll square root, x equals 0. 3x equals 0, divide by 3, x equals 0. So x cannot be 0. Okay, so knowing that, we can cross multiply, and this gives me 12x. Sorry, y'all. Equals x squared. So I would do minus 12x we get 0. Well, it's just a GCF problem, so 0 equals x parentheses, because if I divide out x, I get x minus 12. So I set both factors equal to 0, x equals 0, x minus 12 equals 0, plus 12, x equals 12. So I know that x equals 12 is allowed, but it cannot equal 0. So there is my answers there. Okay, so let's look at the last page. Here we are. Remember, we're not doing 19 or 20, so you can cross 19 and 20 out. Okay, so on number 16, we are doing a common denominator, but first we have to factor our denominator. So this has to be factored. Well, it's a perfect square minus a perfect square. This is x and x, this is 2 and 2, so it becomes x minus 2, x plus 2. So we're not looking here and here anymore. Well, we're going to find our LCT. This has x minus 2 and x plus 2. Nothing simplifies. This has x minus 2, that has x plus 2, so x minus 2, x plus 2. So our domain, x cannot equal a negative 2 or a positive 2. So knowing that, this has the x plus 2, but it needs the x minus 2 to match. So now these two denominators match. This has the x minus 2, but not the x plus 2. So now all three denominators match. And when they all match, they cancel because we can multiply to cancel them. And we're just solving the top. Now don't forget this minus. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up so we don't forget about it and cross off that one so it doesn't look like 2. And I get 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 2 is 8 equals negative 2x times x is negative 2x. Oh, not equal, sorry. Minus. Goodness gracious. I'll rewrite this. 4x plus 8 minus 2x. And negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Now is the equal sign, negative 8. So I'm going to combine my like terms. 4x minus 2x, 8 plus 4, and that gives me 2x plus 12 equals negative 8, minus 12, and I get 2x equals negative 20. Divide by 2, I get x equals negative 10. So that is what I get, and we can check our work. So I would do alpha y equals enter for, sorry, you hear my dog running in the background. Did I get negative 10? Yeah, my bad. And I get this, so alpha y equals enter negative 8 over negative 10 squared minus 4. It's the same thing, so we're good. Okay, 2 more. So on this one, we again have to factor the denominators. So x times x, negative 2, a times c is negative 15. Now, you always want to look here to see if that works. So it's negative 5 and positive 3. It does work, negative 5 and positive 3. Negative 5 times positive 3 is negative 15, and it adds to negative 2. So this becomes x minus 5, x plus 3. So LCD is going to be that, because that one matches, that one matches. Okay, so if this has x plus 3, it needs the x minus 5. This one has the x minus 5, it needs the x plus 3. So now they all have both, so we can cancel the denominator and solve the top. So 2 times x is 2x, 2 times 3 is 6, 5 times x is 5x, 5 times negative 5 is negative 25 equals 16. My dog is running around like a hooligan. So I get 2x plus 5x is 7x. 6 minus 25 is negative 19. So add 19 to both sides. I don't have a squared, so I don't have to worry about factoring. And I get 35. Divide by 7, I get x equals 5. Well, let's figure out our domain before I start boxing in the answers. What cancels a negative 5 is a positive 5. What cancels a positive 3 is a negative 3. Well, I got positive 5, so that cannot be an answer. So my answer is no solution, and 5 is our extraneous solution. I don't know why I drew that line, sorry y'all. Okay, last one. Same concept, we have to factor. So x, b is 2, a times c is negative 8. So that is 4 and negative 2. Okay, so this has the x minus 2, so my LCD is x minus 2x plus 4. So my domain is x cannot equal negative 4 or positive 2. Jake, go lay down. Okay, so this has the x minus 2, it needs the x plus 4. Go lay down. This has the x plus 4, this needs the x minus 2. And now the denominators match, so we can cancel them. And we solve the top. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. Bring up that negative so you don't forget about it. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times 4 is negative 16 equals 11. Remember, we did not change this one because it already had both. So I get x squared minus 6x minus 16 equals 11. Have to get it equal to 0 because I have a squared. So minus 11 minus 11. I get x squared minus 6x minus, what is that, 27? Equals 0. So I have to factor that. B is negative 6. A times C is negative 27. So it multiplies to give me negative 27 and adds to give me negative 26. Negative 27 divided by 9. So it's going to be 9 and 3. So it's going to be negative 9, positive 3. So x minus 9 equals 0. X plus 3 equals 0. Plus 9 plus 9. X equals 9. So neither of those are listed. So I know that x equals negative 3 and 9. Okay, good luck on your test.